Hello and welcome to the Missions Accepted Mission Cast, which is where we're celebrating women who have gone on to do to find work for them that has a true mission and true meaning for them. And sometimes that's a squiggly path to get there. Quite often, in fact, most of the time, most of us. And often it means a pivot away from something you were doing for many, many years and perhaps have fallen out of love with. So first, I'd like to introduce Yvonne Filler to join us in the room. Yvonne, hello and welcome.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So Yvonne, tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you got to the point of really feeling like you were living your mission at work.
I mean, I feel like it's been a long time getting there, really. There's been a lot of dead ends, as you alluded to, a squiggly career. It's very much a squiggly career, but I finally feel like I'm there in my late 40s. I feel like I'm finally there. So, I mean, I won't go on forever about how I got there, but I think it's good to start with my degree because it was a business degree at a very good university. And when I was thinking about the conversation that we were going to have today, I was thinking about that degree and how, and I don't know whether that was a time thing or an age thing, but it was very much focused on success equals money and success equals working for a big accountancy firm or a big consultancy firm. And it was very much pitched at, if you got into one of those, you were really successful. And none of that appealed to me actually at the time. And I went down a sort of marketing route. But still then it was, if you can get into a good company and you can get onto a good graduate scheme, then that was success. So I sort of followed that path. My dad was a big advocate of being a small fish in a big pond. And so I did. And I started at BT. And yeah, it was a big company. It was in London. It paid for a great lifestyle. Did it really do it for me? Not really. Telecoms wasn't what I wanted to do. But I stayed there for a couple of years. And then after that, I was thinking, God, there must be something else. There must be something else. This isn't really me at all. And so I thought it may be because I wasn't using my marketing skills as much or whatever. So it was around the sort of dot-com boom time. And I joined a very small company. I was just the European marketing manager, went from 120,000 employees to 6 of us. And it was an exciting time, but I was marketing pipes under the ground. Again, nothing that was particularly interesting, nothing that groundbreaking, and also still making lots of money for people. And it just didn't sit right with me at all. So, so I went from there I was thinking maybe it was because I didn't do my own thing, and maybe if I went into a different sector, maybe I could do something a bit more mission orientated. So I went and moved and set up my own marketing company. Again, very successful, but I was kind of drawn to dot-com companies because that's the people that were asking me to do work at the time. And when you work for yourself and you've got a new flat, that's what you do. I worked for a lot of different companies, worked morning, noon, and night, made a lot of money. Didn't really feel like I was doing what I was meant to do. And so I guess in this talk, I'm going to talk about 3 main crunch points in my life, and getting pregnant and having that time to think about whether that's something I wanted to carry on doing is a real crunch point in my life. And I did. I spent most of that pregnancy thinking, is this really what I want to do? And actually it wasn't. So a bit of reflection on what are you good at? What do you enjoy? What take that time to think about. And this is what a lot of people do at a certain age, I think. And so I kind of thought, well, you're good at talking to people. You're good at one thing that a friend said to me at the time was, you do all these talks with IT companies and you end up sitting around the table and you're talking nothing about IT whatsoever. You're really good at getting people to talk about things that they want to talk about. So there was that. There was the fact that I was really interested in human behavior. So I threw the whole lot up in the air and decided to give up on some of the luxuries in life and things like that and totally retrain and become a psychotherapist. Which I know for a lot of people would get to that to get to that point and go, okay, that's the mission. That's where she wanted to be. She's helping people. Finally, she's helping people. She's doing something that I always call real life. Like I don't really count corporate marketing real life. It's just, it's not really the thing. So, and so I started seeing couples. I was doing relationship therapy and it was great. I was helping people. They were moving forward. They were going from difficult situations to not so difficult situations. But something was still not quite right. And I guess my problem was, it took me about 8 years to realize it, working for Relate, is that when somebody walks into a therapy room, I think sometimes they feel like it's the doctor's surgery and they're going to get fixed, and that you're going to give them advice and you're going to tell them exactly what they need to do in order to feel better. And the way that a lot of therapy is set up is that that's not what it's all about. It's about listening. And anyone that's had therapy will relate to this, I think. But the frustration in some of those clients' faces was really quite palpable. And I don't know, it just really grated with me that I couldn't just say sometimes, this is what I think you ought to do. We're taught to listen 80% of the time and talk 20% of the time, which for anyone that knows me isn't really me anyway. But also, I don't know whether that helps a lot of the time. Quite a lot of the time it does, and I'm not knocking therapy at all. But I don't think for a large majority of the people that I was seeing, especially in a relationship problem setting, that was the right way. And there's a quote I heard the other day that somebody said, if you've got a real problem, you go to your friend and all you want your friend to do is listen, but they just throw advice at you. You go to a therapist and all you want is advice, and basically they just sit there listening. Yeah. I really like that, because actually that really resonated with me, because I thought that was something that I thought was really true. So I guess I got to sort of crunch point 2, really, where I just thought, do I chuck up in the air all these years of training, everything that I've redone to find my mission, and try and go back into marketing or try and do something else? Or do I just stick with it? And I decided that I was going to try and do something else. And I was very fortunate. I've got a boss, I'm going to give her a shout out, actually, an old boss called Amanda Phone. And I went to see her and I said, do you think after 12 years, I can get back into marketing, but do something with that marketing that's a bit of a twist on something that I've already done? I know marketing can be all about human behavior. Can I use that human behavior? And she's so encouraging. She goes, yes, of course you can. In fact, I'm running a course called Back to Businessship. Why don't you come on that? It was around the time of COVID. I only did 1 week of a 2-week course, unfortunately, because we had to, the next week, everybody went into lockdown. But there was a talk there by a lady called Sharon Lloyd Barnes, I think, from the Advertising Association. And she was basically saying that all everybody wants to see in advertising now is things that are real, bring human behavior into advertising. There was just music to my ears, because I thought, actually, this is brilliant. I can bring what I've learned over the last 10 years. It's not wasted. I can bring it back into a sort of marketing career, hopefully with a bit of a side spin on actually doing some good. So I started to do that. I started to write some blogs. I got in touch with some old friends, and it was quite a slow process. And I think, you can't just immediately say that's what I want to do and I get back into it as much as we'd love to. And so I was writing some blogs. I got some campaign charity work. I was working for a mental health provider. And then I started looking for what I would call proper jobs, like proper paid, like 4 or 5 days a week jobs. My kids were a bit older. And I guess this was crunch point 3, really, after I went through a particularly horrible 8 weeks of getting down to the last 2 for 2 jobs. So I did 4 weeks of presentations and interviews for 1 job. And sorry, we've given it to the other person. But on the same day, getting an interview, first interview for a job, went through another 4 weeks of that, and then get down to the last 2 and presentation. And that was, for me, crunch point 3, because I just thought, I'm never going to be able to do this. Like, I can't keep going at this rate and not actually getting anywhere and getting any jobs. And then I think it was a Thursday night. I saw a job advertised, and I just wrote this really quick cover letter, and I was like, I don't like this. Looks great, but I can't keep doing this. Got a first interview, had a great first interview, actually, with my now boss, who is amazing, and the second interview, which went really well, and now I'm in a job which I would say is probably the best job I've ever had in my life, and it ticks every box that I've ever wanted it to tick. So I'm working for Good Innovation. So they are a social impact innovation consultancy with a mission to help the lives of billions of people. So they work across the charity sector and the corporate sector, working for organizations that really want to make a difference and have real purpose. through anything from, so we help them with their culture, with their strategy, with their new product development, with collaborations. And so in a sense, the impact that's having is across thousands, hundreds and thousands of people. And I'm in something I love, which is marketing, working with an incredibly talented group of people. So yeah, that is how I found my mission.
That's quite a story, Yvonne. That's amazing, isn't it? Because you couldn't, if you'd tried to plan that, it would never have happened out that way, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing, I don't think you can plan these things. Yeah, and it feels really squiggly. And I know when I was in those interviews, that 8 weeks of interviews, it felt difficult telling that story, because sometimes people go, really, what? And then you jumped again, and then you jumped again. But I always had this faith that at some point I would find the thing that I really wanted to do.
And how do you feel about all the things that you've done before and what you're doing now? Does it make sense now when you look back that you have done those things and that they all feed into it?
Yeah, absolutely. If I hadn't started a career in marketing, I wouldn't be in marketing now. If I hadn't done the therapy years, and to be honest, they did fit in around a husband that was traveling a lot, and having a young family and wanting to work locally. So I mean, that was great, but learning so much about people and human behavior. And I don't think that gets enough sort of credit in marketing. I think people go in with the sort of marketing and a textbook, but I think understanding human beings and why they do what they do is such an essential part of a marketing role.
And this is the challenge that so many people have, perhaps in their 40s or 50s, and thinking about a change and really struggling to see how their current experience and all the things they've learned over the last few years can be brought together into something else. But yours is such a lovely example of that.
Yeah, and it's not linear, and it's not always and I guess the other thing for me is it's not always the obvious thing. And I guess, when I started doing the psychotherapy, I guess people would say that would be the obvious thing, because, you've done that piece that everybody tells you to do, which is think about what you're good at, think about what you like doing, think about what you enjoy, if you read a book, or you had a list of things, or you've been to see a coach, and they would say that's the kind of thing that you should go with. And so I did all that and ended up in that career, and it still didn't feel right. So I would say, go with the gut. If you can, go with the gut, and just, think about, is this something that I'm loving doing on a daily basis?
Yeah, and accept that you might do it for a few years and pivot away again. I think there's that whole concern about what is it, sunk costs, isn't it? That idea that you've invested so much, so therefore you must stick with someone, instead of saying, what, maybe I just took what I need from that for the next thing, and to be able to carry that on as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it is painful spending £8,000 on training, and then, but it was 10 years of my life. So, and I learned a lot from it. And it's not like you've taken that money and then just thrown it down the drain. I think actually I got something out of that, and I learned something, and I'm probably using that every day in ways I don't even know.
So those times when it was difficult, when you were thinking, oh, really, what, especially that 8 weeks when you were saying, all those interviews and things, what kept you going to finding the thing that you wanted to do?
I've always had faith that thing would come. I remember sitting around, this is a story I tell quite a lot, sitting around someone's kitchen island. There were 6 girls, and this must have been pre-COVID, and everybody was talking about what the future holds, and where they want to go, and things like that. And a lot of them, I think I was the only one actually out of the 6 that was talking about a future career. A lot of them were talking about retirement, and I never want to work again, and I can't wait till I retire. And I remember being really puzzled and confused, and sitting there thinking, I was early 40s, and I remember thinking, and I actually remember saying, oh, I think my best days are still to come. Am I completely mad? Like, I really feel like I'm still going to find that thing, that amazing career. And, sitting around a room of people who are the same age as me saying, no, I'm done now, and actually I can't wait to finish, was actually quite a shock. And I don't know, I think that's just my belief that I'll always find that thing that I really want to do.
So if somebody was thinking themselves that they knew that they needed to make a change, didn't really know where to start, but knew, just like you, that there was something else out there for them. What would you say to them?
That it's not easy. Like it's not an easy thing to do, and you have to learn to live with uncertainty. And I think that's something that I've really taken on board the last 2 years. Actually, is living with uncertainty. That actually it could happen or it might not happen. But yeah, and also, you know, what I was saying before, it's not linear. You know, try different things. You know, it doesn't have to be that thing, then that thing, then that thing. It can just be, I'll give that a go. No, I'll give that a go, and just you know, have a think about. Do start with, you know, what am I good at and what do I enjoy, but actually, you know, just give a few things a go.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It'll be one more story of inspiration to let people know that it is possible and that you've found the job that makes you so incredibly happy, the best job you've had in your life. And we've all potentially got that ahead of us. So thank you so much for that.
No problem.
So if you're feeling that you're a little bit out of love with the job that you've been doing, or that there's something more that you would like to be exploring and experimenting with, then I would very much love you to come and join us on with Missions Accepted, which is the group coaching program that starts next week, January the 30th. If you're watching this live, and obviously in the replay, we may have passed that time, but we would love to see you as part of a group of women who are searching to find out what that thing is for them, because it isn't clear, and sometimes you need support, and sometimes you need someone to help you with that uncertainty, and we would love to support you with that. So there is a link in the description, and perhaps you too could start figuring out what your mission is.